Everyone knows you can read every book on the shelf, but before you actually do it, you don't really learn how to do it. You're in real estate. Obviously, you've read books, you've learned, but you've actually done it. Tell me, how did you first get into real estate, house flipping, all of that?
Yeah, absolutely, Isaac. Thanks for having me, man. I got started at an early age. I was 3 years old, and I went to my dad's construction site. He built houses, and he said, "I'll pay you a quarter for every dozen nails you pick up on the job site." So that's how I got involved. I was kind of on the job site, saw my parents do that. In college, I house hacked, so had a bunch of roommates and saved money that way, managed leases and maintenance and things like that. After I graduated, I knew I was going to be in real estate to some degree, so I worked for a property management company, um, managed about 200 houses down in South Carolina. By the time I left, 2.5 years later, we were up to 400 doors, and just from there, started doing a little bit of everything, house flipping and um, any opportunity to add value and provide housing for people, pretty much.
So, the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. Did your dad read that book, or was that not out yet? Because isn't that kind of what that guy's dad did for him to show him kind of like what the value of money kind of looks like or something?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a book my dad gave me when I was 12. It's out on my bookshelf until I was 16, and then I read it once at 16 and once at 18. And yeah, the book describes a young man in Hawaii who had two dads. One was the one who was successful in academics and was a professor and had the 401k and the had health insurance, and the other dad was completely different. Building businesses, kind of being an entrepreneur, and he describes one being rich and one being poor, and not just financially, but kind of a mindset. So one mindset is an opportunity-based mindset that there's so much you can do, there's so much opportunity, there's so much money to be made, and the others was a scarcity mindset of like I'm never getting enough, I'm never making enough, and kind of like one person went down a road. So the poor dad went down the road of like doing one thing, being a professor, and then focusing on that. But the other dad opened himself up to a lot more opportunities and served a lot more people. So he was successful in that.
So let's go back to college. What did you get a degree in?
Yeah. So my undergrad degree was in marketing and history, and then I stayed and got my master's in adult education.
And then out of college, you got into property management. What was that like, and what made you want to get away from that and then do your like
Yeah.
own thing?
Yeah. So my plan, Isaac, was I figured I'd always be in real estate, and I'm like, hey, why don't I go get a good job with pays well, that has insurance. I'm going to build my nest egg, and then I'm going to launch into real estate. So that was my whole idea. And I did that for about a year, and I realized it's very hard for me to sit at a desk job. And I wasn't really fulfilling my purpose, I think, at the time. And then a door opened for me to start working for the guy I was renting from. I'm like, hey, do you need help? And he's like, absolutely, I need help. So that was kind of the transition. Was my goal was to do a white collar job, make the money, and then transition into real estate. I just jumped in a whole lot sooner, and I'm glad I did.
How old were you?
So when I graduated college, I was 24, and then I got my master's degree. I was 25 years old. So yeah, it was 2016.
Did anyone in your life think you were crazy?
Yeah, the people when I left, yeah, when I left my job, I think they were like, okay. Um, one of the well, yeah, one of the people I was hired on with, I don't think she really understood, but I knew it was the right thing for me to do. Well, a lot of decisions you make, you don't know if it's the right thing, but all indicators pointed in that direction. So you got to launch off and do it. So, yeah, I think it was a pretty pivotal point to say, all right, I'm just going to do it now. And I think it was I had the wrong mindset going into it, thinking, oh, I need to do it this way. I'm going to build it this way. When most people, you have to jump off the diving board at some point.
I think one of the hardest things sometimes is when you wait in life until you're older and you have kids that you need to take care of and a wife and whatever else. Sometimes it might be harder to make that jump I do think it's better to make those, say, scarier decisions and leaps at a younger age, because if it doesn't work out, it's only affecting you. But if you do it, say, when you're 30, 40, and you have
Yep.
kids, I'm not saying don't take the chance, because I think you should, if you feel like you need to do it, do it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's less, let's say, scarier and financial risk of affecting your whole family. So let's talk about your first deal. Like what, I mean, you do house flipping now, you do rentals. Is that all you do on that side? Like, and you say your wife's a real estate agent?
Yeah, yeah.
You're a real estate agent as well?
I'm not licensed.
Okay,
No,
okay.
no.
So she's like, you're in all the different areas of real estate you possibly can be in. What was your first thing? Was it a house flip, rental? I know you said your house hacked
Yep.
with your college roommates.
Yep. Yeah, I have to think about the first deal. So a big part of my whole story is I don't believe there's such thing as a self-made man. There's dozens or hundreds of people that built into me. So it's nothing that I did. It was kind of being influenced by friends like yourself, mentors, parents, and my parents were a big part of my story. So my first flip was with them. They just paid me to paint. So I wasn't on title. I didn't do the deal, but did the work. I think I was 15. This is the summer I was 15. We did a flip house down the road, and I guess that was my first taste. I describe it this way to people. So my wife and I are a team, so we work together. Highly recommend it. Man, if you can work with your best friend and your spouse in work, and you enjoy it and you're good at it, do it. There's 4 pretty much arms to our business. So, and it's all in real estate. So the first one, so my wife is a realtor, so she buys and sells for other people. The second thing we do on the side is we flip houses. We'll do 1 or 2 a year. So that's kind of a smaller side of our business. The third one is I manage rentals. So I help local landlords manage their properties. And then the fourth side is we buy rentals when we see an opportunity. So those are kind of the 4 sides to it. My first deal, oh man, which one? Yeah, okay. So in 2019, we bought a rental, so 4-unit house. It's back when rates were a little bit better. You could buy things that cash flow a little bit better. It's a little bit different market. We can talk about that. I bought a property that was making X number of dollars. I've rehabbed it, got rid of some tenants, put new tenants in, and then did a value add, kind of made the property better and then made it cash flow better. I think one of my strengths is I'm really tuned to want to make something get better by 5%. Or I want to say, okay, how can I cut cost here? How can I trim the fat here to make it be better there? So that's kind of where my strong suits are and kind of, but that was my first deal and I haven't looked back since. That was, it seems like it was, a long time ago, but it was 2019.
So going into your first deal, I think something that limits a lot of people and even me is how much money do you need? Because I've heard people say you should have a stupid amount of money in savings in case the deal goes wrong. And then some people say, you could go in and try to get the, basically 0% down on a house, and then that way you have more cash in case something goes wrong. What would you say is like, obviously every house, every deal is different, but how much would you suggest to have, say, in a nest egg for your first investment?
Yeah, totally. Let's chat about the mindset first, because you're right. You could have any different number of monetary value. Let me ask you, when you think about someone trying to get started in real estate, what do you think matters the most? Is it having money, or is it having those connections and knowledge instead?
Me personally, probably the connections and knowledge. Some people, I feel like, are very naive to everything in general, of the fact of thinking, oh, I'm going to buy this house, rent it out for this much, and they take the numbers and they don't factor in, you would know, anything going wrong, right? So I think, personally, I would like the knowledge. I don't know exactly what they would want. I feel like they might want that cash flow that might not even be there. And that's the part, even for me, it's like, yeah, I want the knowledge and stuff too. And you can run numbers, but numbers are great on paper until you actually get into the real thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the key idea is that more important than money is having a knowledge of a little bit of what you're doing, and then those relationships. Because in my example, if it wasn't for the relationships that I've had, my mentors, even my parents who already did it, I'm like, okay, there's the lane. I see someone did it, they were successful. Robert Kiyosaki, I read the book, he's successful, and then it makes it so I can jump in there. And if you'll let me, I think there are three main things before you get to money. Like, okay, what's the mindset? I try to encourage people, you need 2 out of these 3 to be successful. Okay, the first one is the right knowledge. Okay, so there's the right knowledge, there's the right deal, and then there's the right money. So those are the 3. You need 2. The right knowledge is knowing your product. Okay, almost like sales. Know what you're selling, know the industry, know your market, how to analyze a deal. That's the right knowledge, okay? So maybe you and I, okay, we know how to sit down, run numbers, do a deal. Okay, great. And we're always learning, right? The second part is the right deal. Makes sense. Really simple. A property or a project that makes profit for you and your investors. You have to have the right deal, okay? And you have to add value. So the right deal doesn't mean just buy something. It means you specifically have to change the value that that product offers you or others. Okay. So the right deal. The last one is the right money. Okay. That's what a lot of people seem they don't have, but I might encourage them. They probably are lacking more in the knowledge of the right deal more than they are the right money. And money is really simple, right? Having money to make the deal happen, but also it's being creative to make the financing work. Maybe it is you're buying something with little to no money down. So I just try to encourage people, hey, can you get 2 out of those 3? So for example, if you have the right knowledge, you know your market, and you find the right deal, guarantee you can find the money, right? Bring in a partner, share the profit, do the deal. Okay, then you have money. If you have the money and the knowledge, so you're analyzing, you're looking for deals, you have capital ready to deploy, man, that right deal is going to pop up. Okay. And if you have the right deal and you have the right money, you're going to look to partner someone with the knowledge to say, hey, Isaac, I've got this opportunity. It's kind of in your ballpark. Can we make it work? And so that's kind of how I would look at it first, instead of just money. Some people have encouraged, me to start with $20,000 to $50,000. Okay. Really practical. I like round numbers. I could get started with that. But I would say, when going back to your question of, hey, how much do you need? Whatever it is, make sure it's an amount that you can afford to lose, because you're not guaranteed. It's kind of like putting into stocks. You're not guaranteed to make it back. But I think money usually isn't the biggest barrier. It's the relationships and the knowledge that are the most critical piece. And that's something that doesn't cost a lot to learn.
So I like that. The knowledge, like, that makes sense, because if you know what you're talking about or doing, you could get an investor like easily with, giving them the numbers, explaining how, whatever. I guess my biggest thing is the opportunity. You find the right opportunity. I feel like there's so many things when you look at houses on the market, because obviously you don't want to go out there and buy a house that's $400,000 off the bat, even if you think you could flip it and maybe make $1 million or something. So it's like, for me personally, like, I try to look at houses around $100,000 or under, because I'm thinking, okay, so if this is $60,000, this is all off of me knowledge, not factual. I'm just giving you an example how I would look at an opportunity. Say it's $60,000, and you look into it. I'm like, okay, well, obviously you want the foundation to be decent. You don't want the house caving in. And then there's other things like the roof, like that's a decent amount to fix. But anyway, so say it's under $60,000. I'm thinking, okay, well, I could probably sell it for, say, $120 maybe, and then you could make some profit off it. You'd have to factor in how much you put into it. But for example, first time I met you was in Bedford at that duplex. I looked at that duplex when it was for sale. I was like, wow. I was like, a duplex, it's one house, one mortgage, one tax, but you have 2 tenants. The difference between me and you is I looked at it and I thought, well, I don't know if this would be a good first investment. You come along and you buy it. I meet you and you're like, dude, I bought this house. You did like minimal things to it, cut down some weeds, mowed the grass, painted some walls, and then you were making money, I think, right? Like with tenants. Obviously, I don't know all the details. But like, so why do you think I looked at it differently than you and didn't jump in?
I remember that day. I'll say this. I felt it was awesome to meet you. Felt like I had an instant connection because our mindset was in the same place. We were going in the same direction, whether you did a deal or not, and we wanted the same things out of life, right? It's not just being successful. It's seeing an opportunity and then acting on it. And I'm a little bit older than you, so I don't know. I don't want to say what the differences are. How about this? Let's chat about this because I'm curious how you see this. Because we all have to analyze, and there's always a day before you do a deal and then you do a deal. Why do you think so many people stay stuck in that analyzing or analysis paralysis instead of just doing their first deal?
Takes forever to save money.
Mm-hmm.
So to lose $30,000, like it took a long time to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And then with $30,000, you could put that other places, whether it's some people might want a new vehicle. And it's like, to me, talking about vehicles, those things, I like nice things, right? But sometimes I do think, like my truck, I'm like, if I found the right deal, I'd sell my truck, get the money out of it, take it. I say that, but I haven't done it yet. But anyways, so I think that, 30,000, 50,000, like that's a huge amount that some people think they might be able to put in safer places like high yield savings account or 401k. But for me personally, to take, say, 20,000 out of your savings or something and put into a deal and then it fail, it's like, I don't know. It's just like, I am very good with having impulse buys sometimes. So I do feel like that is to my favor because sometimes I'm like, let's just do it, see what happens. And I'm very like, what's the worst position you could be in? But like you said, like if you did lose $20,000 and you already had it in savings, it's not like your house that you live in or whatever is going to foreclose. So that is some sort of like a safety net. But I don't know, to pull that money out and say, let's do this, to me is like, I don't know. It's just, I don't know. It's.
How have you ever gone to the gym and your goal was to lift a certain weight and you didn't know if you could do it until you do it? And the first time you do it, usually you can't, or it's one rep, right? But once you handle the weight and you understand the weight, you go back to the gym the next time fresh and you go, I can do that. Maybe it's not one rep, maybe it's two. Isaac, you strike me as a guy who's confident, and you're confident in things that you're good at. We tend to not be confident in things we're not good at. I think if I can rephrase what you said to me there, a little bit of it is trust. The 30,000 feels safe in the bank account. Why? Well, I can see it. Well, when you put it into a house, it's in the house. I can see it. I can drive past it. That house is insured against fire, theft, and flood. My 401k is definitely not. So it's a different asset, it's a different vehicle. But once you do it that first time, so I try to encourage people, do your first deal. So we like sports. Think about a baseball analogy. Okay, let's get on base. When you're going up to bat, what's the goal? Is it to get a triple? No, I want to change my, same batting average if you get on first and third. Okay, so let's get a single. Okay, what's that look like? If it's a bunt, if you get on first, I don't care what it looks like. You should get on first. So why I said trust, Isaac, was you looked at that property. It hit your radar, and you ran some sort of numbers, whether on paper or in your head. And in that moment, you said yes or no. Am I going to move forward or not? I'm not trying to judge you. I'm saying because we all do that. And the trust part comes with, do I trust my numbers? Because another deal will come up, and you've looked at them, and you'll say, okay, I still got my $30,000. Do I trust myself enough to handle the weight that this project is going to do what I think it's going to do? And I would just encourage you, you're successful in a lot of things. Real estate is not complicated. On the next one, trust your numbers, pull the trigger, and I've got a lot of thoughts on this. It's because we really make money when we buy. So when someone sees an opportunity, they think, oh, I'm going to drain my bank account, $30,000. It takes a long time to make $40,000. It takes me a long time. So I don't want to get rid of that too quickly. But in real estate, we have to change our mindset. The mindset isn't I'm losing the $40,000. The mindset is I'm gaining an asset that is appreciating in value. It's going to pay me every month. I'm going to be able to write off on my taxes, and I'm going to be able to hand it down to my children one day. So we make money when we buy. So with that mindset, go and buy. So they say, don't wait to buy real estate and wait. So that's the mindset here. And well, my wife tells me this. My wife tells me this all the time. She said, imperfect action beats perfect inaction. So those are just some of the things that I've kind of ingrained in my head. So when you see something, so like right now, I know when there's a good deal. And when there's a good deal, especially in this market, if you're not on it, it's like Facebook Marketplace, right? You see that guitar on Facebook Marketplace. Oh, that's pretty good. I'm going to save that. You put it there for a day. Well, when you come back tomorrow, it's gone. And you're kind of kicking yourself and you're going, man, I knew it was a good deal. Anyway, that's off the topic. But
No, like, I don't know if you know who Alex Ramosi is. or like some of these people I listen to, they're all about kind of like, what was the quote? Imperfect action is better than perfect non-action, something like that. But like all those things, like I know those things, and like I'm someone who like preaches like do it, like go for it. But then like I'm that person in the position when it goes to real estate where it's like, why are you not doing this? Because it's like it's definitely something I need to do. And it does help, like, knowing people like you said, knowledge, mentors, having people around you that it's like, okay, when I go in my first deal, it's not like it's just me. It's like I have you, I can bounce questions off of. That way, it's like it gives you some, like, well, you know what to look for. I might not. You might find this like, hey, Isaac, look into this, check this out. And you've mentioned to me before, like, I'll help you out with the first deal. And that's nice to know. But I know with this house personally, so I bought it, fixed up the inside, and like the worth of it now is a lot more than when I bought it, but I'm also living in it. So you have I have collateral in this house. How do you feel about using collateral to go buy another property?
I love it. Yeah, use everything in your tool belt to build what you need to build for your family. And sometimes that's debt. So I love Dave Ramsey. I don't take all of his advice. He over leveraged himself, which is a bad thing. So too much of a good thing is bad. The Bible says the debtor is slave to the lender. So we have to be careful with debt. That I don't believe that means we never take on debt. But a home equity line of credit that you could get on your house makes all the sense in the world. I recommend it because I've used it. But it's all within moderation. Here's how I think about it. Don't use debt to buy for a down payment. So that's one of my rules is I won't use debt to finance a deal where essentially I'm getting 100% financing. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me, so I would discourage that. But I was going to encourage you. You've already done your first deal, Isaac. Okay, this house right here is a live-in flip, right?
Yeah.
So what you said you had what's the word you used? Capital. Oh, you have equity.
Equity. Yep.
So this is what you have right now is you have a house on this table, and it's a flip. It's done. It's beautiful. And one day you will capitalize on that. You could sell it and pay some tax and then get that, or you can keep it, or you could rent it, or you could do what you suggested, which is I'm going to pull money out of this asset to do the next one. So, and I don't mean to discourage you. I just would avoid. Let's save up a little bit of extra money for the down payment, and then use that HELOC to fix up the next one, or use it as the funds to rehab the flip. Because I think anytime we make a decision for our family or in finances, we want to do it out of a position of strength. So when you talk to those closest to you, hey, do you think I'm doing this out of a position of strength, or am I straining a little bit too much? Because like in the gym, if we overextend or we do too much, we're going to do more damage to our shoulder, and then I'm going to be out for a month or 2 months, or I'm going to push it too much. So everything is like a building block. So you already have a really good base here. How can we use that to fund the next one?
An interesting statistic I came up on was in 2023. Now the market was, I think that might have been during COVID. Is that during COVID? 2023? No? After COVID? Okay. But anyways, I don't know when COVID was. But anyways, the average house flip made $66,000, which obviously out of everyone in the whole entire country, obviously there's some people that lost. But even just knowing that, like, I don't even think the average salary in the United States is $66,000, or if it's right around that number. So there's definitely money to be there, and you do see these people. Like, that's why the first day, like, I met you, and I was like, man, I really want to talk to this guy. And I was like, well, what's the chances and the opportunity that the guy that actually bought the house that I looked at is here, and I can talk to him and learn from him. And then I don't know how long we talked, but I was like, I need to ask this guy as many questions as I can. And I sometimes have the problem with, I want to have a perfect action. I don't want to do an imperfect action. And it's one of those things I think that does hinder me, because I hate to say make mistakes or make a bad decision. But then with real estate and just even marriage, like getting into marriage, like those are things where they could go wrong. And it's like they're big decisions, a lot of money, or like your life, like who you plan to sit down with. Like those things to me are like, those are big decisions. But I think sometimes, let's not say marriage, but like with buying a house, it's like, just go for it. Like you said, like I need to do this. Hopefully next year at this time, I go for it and I have my second deal. But how do you feel about, so this is, this is just something that's popped in my head. So like some of these houses I see around the area, For example, there's one up the road. Don't take it from me. But there's probably 2 years it's just been sitting there, and there's like weeds growing, and it's a corner lot. The house isn't too big, so like when I look at it, I'm thinking they couldn't want too much for this, and it's been sitting there for 2 years. Like, have you ever like tried to like find who owns a house, reach out to them, and be like, hey, are you interested in selling?
Yeah, I walked a house yesterday. The house looked like it was vacant. I found the owner's information on the tax records. I gave him a call, kind of got the story. Had a really good conversation with the gentleman. Kind of gave me a little bit of history and his situation, and we really focused on, okay, what does he need out of this, right? Because whenever you see a property like that, Isaac, the house is distressed, but I'm telling you, so are the people in that situation. Meaning, something's going on, right? It's usually a sad story, or there's neglect because I don't want to. It's good that you notice that the house is needing some work, but usually there's more going on, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to remember your question. I'm sorry.
I think you answered it because
Okay.
you did it about like if you see a house vacant
Yeah.
and you're like, because sometimes it's like weeds are just growing. You're thinking if you just cut down the grass and stuff, like this would be a good looking house.
Yep.
And now obviously you haven't looked inside of it. Funny story. So we went down. This might have been 2 or 3 months ago. There was a house down here on the school heading to the elementary school, and I don't know if it was a house, what it was. It was awful, but they wanted, I forget the number, 20,000, 30,000 for it, and it looked rough. But I was thinking maybe you could go in and like fix the inside up, and like I don't know, it's not that hard to tear walls down, put drywall up, get someone to come finish it, whatever. Well, went in, looked at it, and it was awful. Like there's holes in the floor. And it's actually funny now. I was on a run the other week, and they whoever bought it tore the whole entire place down. And it was weird. Like they had it built it in like sections, but it was just, I mean, it was off. Like it was just awful. And I don't remember why I'm talking about this. Oh, because like that one there, you could just tell from the beginning it was awful.
Mm-hmm.
But I was thinking like maybe the inside's all right, and you could maybe make the inside. But no, because that's something I think you see these houses, and something I hate to see is even barns. And I'm not like a farmer. I do have some animals, but like you see these barns, and at one point in time those were good barns, and then whether like you said they don't have money to keep up with it or whatever the situation is, and then you see these barns get worse and worse, and then they fall over. And it's like if you would have just sold that back then, someone could have probably kept up with that or made money off of it. Who kept it nice. And same with houses. Like sometimes you see a house and they sit there, and they just keep getting worse and worse and worse. And I'm like you said, like sometimes people they need $60,000 or whatever it is, and they're like, sure, I'll sell it to you.
So what that is, Isaac, is that's an opportunity, because if everything was cared for, stewarded for, we might not have the opportunity to buy a house like this and make it for your family and have memories for your family. So those are all opportunities, and you're already seeing it. You go for a run, because when you run, they say go driving for dollars, but if you walk, or I like to cycle, you'll see so many opportunities. You've driven past houses, our listeners have, you've been driving past for 5 or 10 years that are completely falling apart, and you've never noticed it. But when you go for a run, you go, I wonder what's going on there. And before we leave today, we're going to look at that house and run numbers on the back of a napkin so that you can say, does it make sense or not? Because let's not let your capacity in your brain, you only have so much mental space. So let's not cloud it with, oh, is that a deal? Should I look at it? I don't know if I'm going to call him. I'm not that experienced. What am I going to say to him? I don't even have the money just yet. I need to sell this. What if I got rid of another guitar? And then I don't even know how bad it is. And do I have enough time with work? This is the mental game we play, right? Do I have enough time for my family, or I already have a 9 to 5? And I think if we can streamline the mental energy to say, does it pencil out, yes or no? There are 100 ways that you can add value to that house and to those people's lives. You could partner with someone. You could wholesale it. You could buy it and flip it. I've helped people do the minimum work it needs to do to list it as a listing, and then say, hey, my wife would be glad to help you list the home if we could. I just think there's opportunity. Could we circle back to something you said? Okay.
Go for it.
Back to the quote. imperfect action beats perfect inaction. And you mentioned, I want to be perfect in something. Okay. Why do you want to be perfect?
That is a great question. I think everything stems back to like childhood and like being younger. And this is a lot of the reason I have a drive for a lot of the things I do is because I feel like growing up, so I was adopted at 6. So since then, people have raised me, great family. But even through middle school, high school, like I feel like there was always this thing on me, like I always had to prove people right, whether it was sports or like I can remember someone saying one point in time it was like, "Oh, you'll never get moved up as a freshman in sports," and I was like, "We'll see about that." And then I did, and it's like one of these things that even nowadays it drives me because I can remember like one time teachers saying something about I don't know, just like they made a comment about basically if you don't go to college, you're not gonna ever have money. And like now, like not trying to flex or whatever, but it's like I know how much I make and I know how much teachers make, and I'm just thinking, okay, like I don't know. It's just there's this thing. It's always been like I want to prove people wrong, but then Alex Hormozy talks about this thing, and even my mom. So my mom is like one of the best Christian ladies out there. Like always on me about certain things, right? And because for the longest time it was always like money, 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 and I still want to be successful because I hate having to worry about like money's one of those things I don't want to have to beg other people for it. So I want to make my own. But anyway, so my mom's always like kind of helping me with this fact is like, and even Alex Hormozy talks about like having that to drive you like is good. But when you get there and you're like, I did it, those people don't even know that. Like that doesn't even cross their mind. But I do think it is beneficial in some way because it gives me some sort of drive in any aspect of life is like, but now I'm to the point where it's like everything I want to do, I feel like if you don't do it, say perfect or good, then people use that like, oh, you failed. And they use that like fuel against you. And I don't like giving people fuel to my fire.
Okay. Okay. I think it's that. Thanks, man. That's helpful. And way to go, mom. Right? When you can be so impacted by your mother, that people that want the best for you. But why do you think it is that our motives, let's say school athletics. Okay. So you mentioned school athletics, and now we're talking about business. Okay. And another one, fourth big one is family. Okay. Um, why do you think? Why is it that all those things are good, and working towards them are good, but with the wrong mindset, we can hey, going to the gym, right? Do we go just to? Sometimes you go to I want to feel good, and sometimes you go spring break's coming in college. You're like I want to look good. Like okay, is going to the gym bad? No, but going for the wrong reason might be a little bit unhealthy because I think all of these things have a runway. Okay, so if our motive is for me and for my gain, you will get it. I believe if you're willing to give the world anything, it will give you what you want, right? So if you're willing to give up everything, your time, your energy, your morals, your worship, I do believe this world will give you that thing. But what I'm afraid of is so many men who are successful get to the top, they abandon their families. Some of the five most successful, the five most wealthiest men in the world, you think about their life and you think, wow, are they married? Are they living in the same state as their children? Are they, I don't, like, I gotta be careful. I don't go down that road, but I think the right thing to the wrong degree is the wrong thing, right? So for why we're doing it. Okay, so you want to be perfect. So what was it like starting this, knowing you wouldn't be perfect, but you did it anyway?
So I've definitely gotten better over the years with just processing things, with becoming more confident as a person and knowing like in myself like this won't be perfect but we're going to go for it because like that quote, I love the quote that your wife said. I don't know if it's hers or whose it is, but like just do it because until you do it, like same thing with real estate, you can read every book. Like I started the podcast, you can read so many books, you can listen to so many podcasts, but until you actually do the thing you're not doing the thing and you can't learn. Like, there's so many things you learn along the process. And again, like, I know that. Same with like real estate and like trying to be perfect. But with the podcast, it's like, I don't know. It's one of those things. Even with the podcast, it's like I try to make it perfect as perfect as I can. And sometimes when things don't go right, or the quality isn't as good, or the audio is off, it drives me nuts. But then I come to the fact of remembering, like, okay, this is only my 6th podcast or 7th podcast. Like, you got to give your time to learn, become better. But yeah, I wouldn't say being perfect like holds me back. But yeah.
Another question. Would you say you're a person that fails well?
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like I've failed of a lot of things in life. And I feel like I'm setting myself up in the position. It's like, why haven't you made a real estate deal yet? Because when it comes to failing, it doesn't really, nothing in my life yet has really affected me enough to where, like, I felt like I can't go on. Whether it's financially, relationships. I kind of, if I fail, that was yesterday, and then we're here now today, and it's a new day. And as long as I have some food and water and I'm not dead, I'm like, it's a new day. Like, let's go.
Do you can you relate to me where sometimes I feel like I'm my own worst enemy?
100%.
Maybe it's a mental battle, right? It doesn't really happen out here, but in my head I go, miss that. You ever drive past a house that someone bought, maybe that one they tore down, someone flips it, and you go, man, that could have been me.
Yes, all the time.
So there's nothing wrong with any of this because there's an element of trust and understanding. And hey, you're knowledgeable enough to do any of these deals that you're talking about. You are. And if you're someone who can fail well, you're going to do excellent in real estate. You're going to thrive, but you won't know it until you do it. And you won't know it until you get on base. Seriously, ever play baseball and you
Yes.
get on base the first time, it's a farm league or pony league, and you get on base and you go, whoa, I can do it. And then what are you thinking about when you're on first base?
Getting to second
base, right? And I just think that's why I love what you're doing, because you're encouraging people to, like Alex talks about, getting to the next space. I think there are things that we tend to need to hear, and can I share one with you? Okay, this may not be applicable to you, but it might be for some of our listeners, and it was for me. So I say this, Isaac, being successful doesn't make God love you anymore. And I think when you let that hit and you apply that, let's apply that to your mom. You know, you want to be perfect and you want to be successful, but it's not for her to love you anymore. And I try to encourage people, because all of this builds on each other, like how we view our purpose and how we view our gifts and how we view our parents, and then, right, see the cross around your neck, how the God above has given you abilities. He's giving you an ambition, and he's giving you knowledge, and he's giving you opportunities. Why do you think he has you here right now? Not just talking in this room, but down the road from that one house. You might be the perfect person for that house. And I just would say, hey, as long as we get the mindset, because you'll be successful. I'm telling you, Isaac, today you run numbers, I'll show you how to contact the owner. This time next week, you could be under contract. 15, 30 days, you're closed. And then you're not doing the podcast as much because you're either working there or getting someone. But what if we do that with the wrong mindset of, I need to, not that you are, I'm just speaking generally, where I need to be perfect. And that's where I think for me, that's where my anxiety comes in, of wanting to be.
Yeah. And how many standards do we hold ourselves to that other people don't? And we were just talking the other night about like sinning and stuff. And to me, it's like I sin all the time, and it drives me nuts because it's like, why did you do that? Like, you shouldn't have done that. And then it's like some days I feel like, I'm like, man, I just keep sinning. Like I'm also holding myself to this standard of trying to say be perfect, which I don't. Like, that's not like I'm not trying to be perfect, but this standard of almost being perfect, say, and like I know I can't do it. So I was like, sometimes it's like, why am I holding myself to this standard? Same way with like even posting on social media. Like I used to have like this, I wanted to post every day, and then I had 2 Instagram accounts because I was trying to grow one because the other one wasn't, and then I was doing TikTok and all these different things, and I was driving myself nuts, like just stressed out, like not like just like more like anxiety, I guess. And I was thinking, well, what are you doing? It's like like, no one is telling you have to post every single day. No one is telling you. And then, I took it back and I got rid of that other Instagram. I was like, okay, now I'm only going to post kind of when I want to, like, what I feel like it. And like, that's kind of what I do now. And it's so much more relieving and not as stressful, and not like, I don't have this certain standard that I think I have to hit. But back to what you were saying about the top 5 successful men in the world. I do think it's good to look at where they are and what they have, because so many people, and like, I've been there, like, I don't think I'd ever want to be a billionaire, just because I know how hard it is to make $1 million. So like, to get the billion, I could only imagine. But like you said, it's like when you look at their life and you hear these people that have millions of dollars, billions of dollars, and they're still not happy. And like, you look at what they have, like, and it all depends on your morals and what you want. But like, I want a family. I want kids. Some of these guys that have been successful, made it, they don't have time for kids. They don't have time for family, because every waking hour that they possibly have is trying to become richer or have more money.
So I did a study. I looked up every time in the Bible it mentions earthly wealth. You want to know what I found out? 9 times out of 10, it was put in a negative connotation. The Bible says it's difficult for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God. Proverbs says it's like a burden, right? We think it's a blessing, but loving the wrong thing, or loving the right thing to the wrong degree, is sin, and it's idolatry. So we got to be careful before we go down this road and we throw these bags on our back and carry it, because it says it over and over again that it's a burden. And you said, hey, I don't want to be a billionaire. People would go, why would you not want to be a billionaire?
Well, I don't think I'd ever have time with my kids, my wife, family. Kind of like what you said, like, if you give away morals, and like, there's so many opportunities I've had, even like with photography or with like certain things of that what nature of just like my body, like, basically sell your body to make money. And it's like, you could make a lot of money doing that, but it's like, and like, you don't know me that well, but like, I kind of went down that path for a minute and I stopped and I thought, like, what are you doing right now? And it wasn't even like full blown, like how much money, because like, I didn't like it was, but there's so much money you can make in this one thing. And I'm thinking, the whole reason I stopped actually was because I was thinking, if I make this money and I think about God, it's like, you're basically selling your body to make money. But anyway, so like, down that, I just think you'd go down so many paths that you'd spend your whole life trying to do this one thing. And this is also like a fear I currently have, is spending your whole life going after this goal that you think you have, whatever it is, and you get to the end of your life. And I like to look at old people a lot, like watch what they're doing, what they have. And most old people that have money or don't have money, like, yeah, they might have a nicer house, but you look at them and their lives aren't really that much different. They're old, but then I like to see, like, I wonder if they're lonely. Like, are they married? Do they have kids? Like, what brings them joy? Because when you're old, there's certain things, like, yeah, you might have a nicer house. You might be able to go on more vacations. But it's like, and don't get me wrong, I think people need to invest for money so someday when they retire, they have money to live. But it's just because there's a day you're going to be old, and it's going to be like, did you use the days that you were alive to, I'm going to piggyback off something I heard, being a servant for God, and something I heard on a podcast the other day. And the guy was like, when you get to heaven, you what you want to hear is like, good job, good and faithful servant. It doesn't say good job, podcaster, influencer. And yes, you can do those things and be a servant. Like this here, I feel like this is going to help a lot of people. But remember, like, while you're here and you're alive, you have a bigger purpose than making money or becoming the most successful person, because like you said, it leads you down to, I personally believe why billionaires and these people with a lot of money tend to sometimes fade away from God and Jesus, is because after you have so much money, you don't need anything. Like, you don't need God. You don't need, like, this is how I personally think they might think, because like you probably know, like after you make a certain amount of money, you have, like, you can do things where before you needed people to help you with something. Or like, think like if you, as a kid growing up, like you needed your parents to make you food. So like for that example, like with God, like the reason like I feel like I still need God is because like there's so many things that I need help with, but I feel like they get to the spot where it's like they feel like they are a God, and then they start thinking like, I don't know, it's just that's how I think about why I wouldn't want to be a billionaire. That was a long answer.
That's good. Sorry, I just need a second. I'm thinking about everything you said. I think about it this way. Okay, so let's go back. Okay, the billionaire. Okay, Jeff Bezos is looking jacked, right? Okay, let's just say. Now, is that authentic? That's not my thing. It reminds me of, well, you can be so successful in one area, okay? And it appears like success, right? So what we define as young men in our 20s and 30s as success, we say that's what it is. Physical fitness, financial independence, having a house, boom. We got to be careful because we live in a culture, the grind mindset, the hustle culture, which I hope will die out because it's the wrong mindset, okay? So there's a difference. There's stewardship and there's ownership, okay? Ownership says this is mine. Stewardship says this was entrusted to me. So if we start our day and we say, I am the most important person in my life, and we just check our stocks or check our this, and it's all about us, then that's all there's ever going to be. There's going to be no room in your heart for God because you don't need him. We're absolutely in a culture that lives that way. So what is God going to do? Is he going to force himself into your life? Maybe, maybe not. I think he's going to knock. I think he might break you down. I think if we talked about our testimonies, you might find that we found the Lord or the Lord found us when we were in a moment of weakness, not a moment of strength. And we think to ourselves all throughout Scripture, is God looking for strength? No. He's looking for obedience. Is he looking for talent? No. He's looking for a willing heart. And he will give you what you need. To think about all of the characters in the Bible. King David, Moses. Think about Jesus. Okay. So, Jeff Bezos, whoever the richest man in the world is. Okay.
Elon Musk.
Elon Musk. Thank you.
Yep.
Who owns all of it? God. Okay. So the God of the universe came to earth. All right, we're going to change it a little bit here. God of the universe came to earth. And what form did he come in?
Dirt. Nothing. I don't know.
He came in the most
oh, baby.
He came as a baby. So
whoops.
No. I was tracking me.
Yeah. I was thinking of Adam, and then I was like, wait,
yep,
baby. Okay,
yep.
sorry.
So God came fully man, fully God in the form of a baby. And when I held my daughter for the first time, I thought every ounce of my being needs to take care of her. I am no longer the most important person in my life. So that was we can talk about that another time. But I just think if Jesus came in that form to relate to us, to work for 30 years as a carpenter. Okay, so get this. The Greek word for what he did, it wasn't carpenter, it's tekton. It means mason. So if you go to Israel, there's not a lot of trees over there. Jesus worked with block. Houses weren't built out of wood, they were built out of stone. So I could go on forever. I love this though. You think about Jesus carrying his cross, he was a fit man. 30 years learning the trade of his father. So what did he do? He worked. He then moved his family to Galilee. He provided for his half brothers and sisters. He took his mother and provided for her before he started his public ministry. So what I'm describing here is the God of all came as a servant. Jesus came not to be served, but to serve. And if that doesn't change the way we live, if that doesn't change our roles in our family, we tend to think I'm the man, I'm the head, But if Jesus says, that he came as a servant, it's a role reversal. So I just think about some of these things where, well, what if you and I went to the gym? Okay, this is my right arm. This is my strong arm, right? I'm right-handed. I'm going to work this out every day, and it is going to get jacked, right? But I'm going to go, and you're going to see me, and I'm going to be an awkward-looking guy because I'm going to be weak in every other area. My spirituality is going to be is going to be weak. My lung capacity is going to be terrible. But man, I'm going to be really strong. And you know what? When you go to, like you said, when we go to heaven, there's not a bank account. There's no comparison. And I know I'm going on a little bit, but I think these are some of the things that can reset. Whose kingdom am I working for?
No, it's good. That is good because, yes, like I don't want to say I enjoy death, but I sometimes enjoy thinking about dying because it really puts things into perspective of what actually is important. And kind of like what you said with if you have one strong arm, it's like there's so many parts of being like what we would think because we're Christians. Some people aren't. So like they don't have any of that, I guess, that side of morals of what they want to be. But it's like as a Christian, like you said, like you could be so rich, be the best business guy, but if your home life and your relationship with God sucks, doesn't really matter how much money you have. And at the end of the day, that's the whole reason we're here is to obviously bring people to Christ and like hopefully be good examples. But you have to, like you said, work out with Jesus, gym, business. Like you have to have it all or you're going to be lacking something. And like my mom personally would say is like you need God over everything. And I agree, you need God over everything. But sometimes that does lack because we get sidetracked by other things. And then it's like, and I don't like physical signs sometimes. Like sometimes I feel like I need Jesus just to punch me in the face and be like, wake up or like focus. But no, I think that's a great point you make. And let's talk about becoming a father. So I heard a guy once say, he was a business guy, and having a kid actually motivated him more to like make more money or be more successful, but motivated him more to become a better man, business side and as a personal man, because now he has a kid that he wants to provide for, be a good example for, raise, and all those. And sometimes my biggest fear in life was when I have a kid, I'm going to lose all this time, right? Because now you have to, and not that it's a bad thing, but now you have to change your diaper, play with them, give them time. If you want to be a good dad, but now it's like I don't have time to maybe do a podcast or have as much time to edit this or do this, especially with having, say, a 9 to 5. I don't work a 9 to 5. I work from like 7 to 3:30, but same concept. So there's only so much time in a day. How do you feel like having a kid has benefited you and changed your perspective on life?
Great question. Well, it's changed everything. I'm a much richer man since having my little girl. And if I can circle back to tie it in, the last conversation we had was important because even though we didn't say it, we separated two things. We separated what's eternal and what's not, right? So we talked about money, not eternal. Strength, physical, not eternal. Houses, not eternal. Okay, now when we're talking about being a father, we're talking about souls and soul care. So it changed because I asked myself this question, okay, when I became a father, what changed about me? Was it my schedule? Yes. My sleep schedule? Absolutely. But wasn't it also the way I see time itself? Okay? I'm no longer the most important person in my life. I have someone who is eternally there, right? It's a beautiful thing. And I think, Isaac, I encourage children so much because I thought I knew all these things. I know children are a blessing from the Lord. I know they're beautiful. I know it's good. I know it's part of my purpose is to be, not that I can't fulfill my purpose without children, but that part of our purpose is to create and to, it's called the creation mandate. Okay, we're called to be fruitful and multiply, just like in the Garden of Eden. And I go, this hasn't been an identity shift for me. Where, have you ever done something where you knew everything about it? Okay, you thought, you read the books, you did the thing, you went to the seminar, so to speak, and then you did the thing, and you're like, I was not prepared in any way, shape, or form. Because doing it, it's not necessarily the planning, it's the doing. Because what God is orchestrating through children is our own sanctification. I'm telling you, man, when we met back in 2023, I was a different person. I was living more for myself even then, even though I'd say I was preparing for children. But now it is, it's wild when you can look at something as in a person and say, this is what I'm doing it for. A bank account means nothing to me. A clock doesn't mean anything to me, because this person will look you in the face, and when she smiles, you'll just go, okay, this is what it's about. You calm down, you slow down. I go to the gym. I don't go to the gym, So I would, to answer your question, it has benefited me immensely, because it changed my perspective, and I think I'm realizing that time matters more than money.
Yeah, I think with the hustle culture, those things, parents aren't having kids until later now. I think, don't quote me on this, but like the average woman is having a kid like in the mid to late 30s now, because they want to make money or work their way up this corporate ladder to what they consider success. And sometimes they wait so long that they can't have kids, or they get to the point where now they're like, we kind of enjoy life the way it is. We don't want a kid, and like we're getting older now and they don't want to do it. And I think I know it is hurting the United States in general. Like right now we have a bunch of old people, not a bunch of young people. And at some point in time when all them old people are dead, we're not going to have enough people in the United States right now. And then on top of that, you have like microplastics that are like affecting people having kids, and the stuff in their food. And then it's like, I don't know. It's
yeah. So I'll just say this: everything you're describing is I believe it's true, but it's all things that God has in control. So when things fall apart, and I do believe they will in the end, it's not things falling apart; it's things falling into plan. Man, let's start a podcast on conspiracy theories, and some of those things you just said, which I don't think are conspiracies, because I'm tracking with 100%. So we are to not be like the world, and isn't it? So get this. My wife and I are talking about it. When we announced to family and friends and interested people, no judgment to anyone, that we were having a baby, you wouldn't believe the looks that we got. People we've known for years, or family we've known for years, and they go, whoa, really? Because think about it. A lot of people our age some of them are delaying or choosing not to. Okay. I think having a child forced me to think beyond my own lifetime. Okay. So saying it's big is an understatement. It's literally a part of you. And that's a wonderful, beautiful thing. So if that's true, okay, so declining birth rate, okay, and you attempted to describe the reasons, so men and women can work longer, more money, right? Because a lot of this is practical. Some people will say, I would love to have children, I can't afford it, okay? So I will say, every time we assess something, let's think about it. Is this a scarcity mindset, or is this a mindset out of abundance? Because the Lord calls us to have children, to be a blessing and to be image bearers of Him. So I don't think the creation mandate changes just because the economy is a little bit down. Obviously, finances are important. But if that's true, what does the declining birth rate in America say about us as a culture?
We need God back. 100%. Yeah, I think everything goes back to, and like, is God and all that stuff, because if we brought that back into schools and you raise your kid, like even just and like this is completely off, like we didn't have this plan to talk about really, but like if you go to like the school system and the way like parents are raising their kids and all these things, it's like you can vividly see like this is the way that we are going as a society, and it all stems back to, I truly believe, on how you're raised. And like if you read the Bible and like, I don't know, it's so like Mennonites, Amish, we'll go Mennonite because like my best friend used to be a Mennonite, and like over like where I grew up there's a bunch of Mennonites, and kind of like what you said, abundance. So they don't have, even though most Mennonites normally own their own businesses and like those, so I wouldn't say they're not successful in those ways, but they don't care about stuff that like most like we care about, like certain cars or certain things. Like some of them are still in horse and buggy, right? Even though a buggy apparently costs like $15,000. Didn't know that. But anyways, yeah, so you like look at them like what they care about, and it's just like, it's not abundance. Like they grow their own gardens, they do those things. And yes, to like the culture of the world, it looks very different, and it is different. And I'm not saying like some of the stuff they have, like they feel like they can't show their ankle. Like some of that stuff's a little strange, and it's like whatever. But I do feel like they are probably living life a little bit better than most people, with the fact that even people that don't have electricity and like those sorts of things. Like again, I think that's a bit extreme. Like I think it's not a sin to have electricity, but still, like that's I think some of that stuff they do or they don't want to get away from it is because they don't want you to get to that part where you feel like you need crazy amount of abundance of everything. Because yeah, the more things you want, the nicer cars, the nicer clothes, kids start to look not as good because they are expensive. So yeah, I think abundance is probably the issue.
Yeah, isn't it wild? I'm tracking with you 100%. Where you start to appreciate things maybe that we may not choose to live that way, but we can eat the meat and spit out the bones and say pragmatically and practically they're living out a way to be separated from the world. And I can respect that. And I think there's some things we could take and apply. But I think a fundamental question is, what are children? Are they good or are they a burden? Are they a blessing, a gift, or are they they take my time, they take my energy. I'm not going to sleep as well. I'm going to have to do this. I'm not going to be able to work, or I'm going to have to drop them off at daycare. And I think once a society fundamentally sees children as a burden more than a blessing, we've tipped the scales in a way that's missing our purpose and what we were created for. Because you and I are here talking because your mother and your parents cared for you and loved you and nursed you and fed you and gave their energy to build you up. And I just think it is it's a wild, I highly recommend it. It is a wild thing because we tend to live our lives, right? We look in the mirror, we look at photos and we say, okay, what's my identity? Who am I? Well, is it the car I drive? I hope not. Is it my bank account? I really hope not. But a lot of this forms that. So when that gets broken and you go, no, what do you say I am first? Isaac, if let's just say hypothetical, hey, who are you? What do you start with? I'm a podcaster. You could. Okay. But you're probably going to start with something a little bit more personal or something that has a little bit, right? So I wrote this question down coming here today. What do you think kids remember more when they grew up? So what did you remember most? The things parents provided or the kind of life that they lived in front of you?
100% lived. Something I noticed growing up, like now looking back on it, is I don't ever really remember seeing my parents fight. And I know that's a big one with like growing up and seeing your parents fight. So I think that's a big one that really sticks out to me. The other thing was money was never really an issue. Like I never heard them like talk about money things, but I also never saw them be like my parents are very like they don't think they need the newest car. So my mom grew up very poor. So to her, like she would never go out and buy a brand new car because if she's fine with say 6-year car if it has a low, like that kind of thing. So to me, it was like money never had this value or anything like that where it was like, this is what we want you to do or like this is a standard we want. And my parents were always there. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, so she was always there. So like that's what I know as a like never went to daycare. And then my dad, he worked a lot before I was adopted and my sister was born. And like as a man now looking back at it, I'm like that's like it's like you're proud of your father. Like it's weird like when you get to a stage where it's like you're slowly becoming like the man and like he's getting older, but it's like I look at my dad and I'm like, man, I wouldn't have half the things if it wasn't for you. But he's always worked. He's never heard him complain. So I'd say those are the biggest things that I can remember. And then just getting in trouble for not playing my instruments, practicing my instruments every day.
Wow. Well, Mother's Day is coming up.
Yeah.
Sounds like we got 2 mothers to be grateful for and be thankful for. And thanks for sharing that, man. I never knew your story. I'm sure there's still a lot more I have to learn.
Yeah,
but
I've never really told anyone it. this is a side note, but I did think before, like, maybe I should talk more about my story. But again, it just goes back to giving people fuel to put on my fire. I don't know. I feel like it's a weakness. Like, I don't like telling everyone everything. Like, I don't know. But I do think it would benefit people, because I feel like a lot of people look at me and they're like a lot of people don't even know I was adopted. So a lot of people look at me and they think things, or, oh, he probably had a good life or this. And I had a great life, but a lot of things that would happen before I was adopted have like definitely affected who I am now. And like, you have to deal with it at some point in time. And it's like, some of those things everyone has to deal with, because not most people, but there's a lot of people that don't have good childhoods, and you have to learn how to deal with it. And, I don't know. It's definitely something I feel like I should talk more about.
It's crazy, man. You have a podcast, but sometimes we don't like talking about ourselves. Something that's helped me think about this, if you're able to take your life, put it on the table, okay? Put the idea on the table to talk about, because you have a sounds like an amazing story just from what I've heard. And you say, okay, let's start the conversation about how adoption is one of the most beautiful pictures of the gospel that you could ever have, of where God came and adopted us as if we were his own and made a way. And I'm going to stop there, but just, I think sometimes I've been able to do that, to take yourself out of it, because it's not just about you. It is your story, but then that might give you a little bit of freedom to say, okay, we're going to talk about adoption, and you have a firsthand experience of what that looks like. And man, I think it's cool just hearing you say that. Kind of gave me chills a little bit, because you kind of wonder why people have drive or this, or we all have reasons to say, oh, I could have done this, but this happened or that happened. And I'd like to hear. I mean, I'd love to interview you about that story.
No, that's the one thing that drives me is all of that. But when I hear people say, I was abused, or this was, this growing up and this, and I'm thinking, like, I've been there. I've been in a worse situation, but never once have I used that to be like, this is why I'm not where I am. And even like meeting Haley and like talking to Haley and like not to get in her personal stuff, but like just with her whole situation growing up. And I'm like, man, like, at least I was adopted, and at that point growing up, like, that's most of what I remember, and like I had a great childhood from that point forward. And it's like, I was grateful. Like, my life would be completely different if I was not adopted. So I never met my father, like my real father. So like, to me though, like, the only dad I know is the dad that raised me. And like, I know there's another father out there, and like, that to me isn't something that's like really affects me much, because I didn't know anything else. But you hear some people, like, they use that to like whatever. But anyway, so she met some of my brothers, and I think just some of my brothers. Some of them, I invited everyone to my wedding, so I have other siblings, obviously. And not saying they're not success, like, that's what I'm not trying to say. Just completely different upbringings. Like, I would have never played sports. Like, they never, like, were allowed to play sports. Just, yeah, it is crazy. And like, even the whole story of my mom. So she's, real quick, I don't want to get in today, but like the whole story. So she was listening to a Joyce Meyer tape, and my parents had trouble having kids. So I have a sister, Hannah, which they actually had. She's 2 years older than me. But then they wanted another kid, but they're starting to get older. And she's like, I guess they started looking to adopting. And she's listening to this Joyce Meyer tape. She's walking down the road, and she's like, say with me, I'm going to find myself an Isaac, or I'm going to have myself something, right? Because Isaac almost got killed. So I'm sure she was talking about something about that. And so she's saying that, and then my aunt calls her one day and it's like, hey, there's this lady, she's having a kid. She doesn't want the kid. And she's like, I think I'm going to adopt them. Whatever. So she told my mom, whatever. So then 6 years later. So apparently my mom, I don't know that whole story, but apparently like my real mom, like a birth lady. I don't even really like to call her my mom, but so birth lady. And she had me, I guess she decided to keep me for like 5 years. And then she decided she didn't want me anymore. So my aunt now named me because she was going to take me at birth. Didn't happen. So 5 years later, my aunt calls my mom now and says, hey, there's this kid, his name's Isaac, he's looking for a home, like they need a home for him. And my mom was like, what's his name? And she's like, Isaac. And like my mom remembers listening to that, or like Joyce Meyer saying like, I'm going to find myself an Isaac or whatever the saying was. And my mom was like, yeah, like I'll take him. And then I don't even know how this happens because it's so wild to me for like a mom to be like I feel like the next week I'm there with my new family, and apparently I went with them for like a weekend or a week or something. Then went back. I said I didn't want to move in with them or live with them, so I went back to my old house. And then like 2 days later, I guess I called him because I saw my dad, saw him drive by in a truck. Apparently, this is a story. I don't remember this too well. And then I called him and said like, yeah, I want to come live with you. And then the rest is history. But even just that, it's like the way that God was involved with all of it. And it's just, yeah, like I'm definitely grateful for being adopted.
Wow. That's an amazing story. I mean, that could be a whole podcast episode on its own because, I mean, yeah, you never just move past hearing something like that. That's not just, you don't just move on. It's a part of you. And, yes, I'd like to hear more about that sometime. And,
It's a good time.
yeah.
So there's a Bible verse, Luke 16:10. Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with very much. And whoever is dishonest with very little will be dishonest with much. And this goes back into talking about faith and business. But obviously you're a godly man. And I do like to take advice from, say, godly business owners, because I do think if you don't have God in your life, the way you do business could be different, and that's not really the way I want to do it. Not saying you can learn from those kind of people, like Alex Hormozy, for example. He's real big on like doesn't think you should have kids, not a dog, because it takes time from your day. He has slowly shifted. Tony Robbins and him had a podcast together not too long ago, and Alex Hormozy's kind of in this space where he doesn't know what to do with his life because he doesn't feel motivated to make any more money because he's already made hundreds of millions, whatever. And Tony Robbins is like basically telling him, like, I think you need to have a kid. He's like, I think you need something else in life. And it's actually a crazy podcast because everything Alex Hormozy has said over the years about like things he's kind of starting to switch his ways, the way he thinks things. But anyways, I learned a lot from Alex Hormozy, but like as of now, like I don't think he's a godly man, just the way like way he processes things. But that's beside the point. But anyways, as a godly man with faith, all those stuff, how do you approach business, money, and just all those things?
Yeah, I like that you talked about Alex a bit because, man, we are so influenced. We'll say, oh, I'm not really. But the music you listen to, the billboards you pass by, the books you read will influence you and they'll become a part of you. And you may not even notice it. So that you're noticing that about Alex, don't move on from that too quickly. I heard a wise man once say, there are no godly men. There are weak men who on their knees call out to a good God and proclaim him more than self. So that's what I would desire, to be a weak, dependent man on God. And it puts the emphasis on him, not on me. Anyway, faith in business. This could be probably the deepest and most interesting part of our whole discussion. Could be. Real estate can be about control, accumulation, money, status. It can be. But faith should reframe it. Okay? Kind of like that idea we talked about of stewardship versus ownership. Ownership is, this is mine, control mindset. Stewardship is, I was given this, put in my hand for a season. What will I do with it? Any property I bought was bought from someone else. And all those properties will go into someone else's hands. Maybe, hopefully you will. So I'm like, I am just a steward for the time that God has me here. That changes everything. So faith realigns my mindset to say, what is eternal? Okay, great. The duplex, eternal? Yes or no?
No.
No. The profit?
No.
Me owning it?
No.
What about the people who live inside of it?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I just think like how I manage what God has entrusted to me is not so much a discussion of how much I've been entrusted with, but to what degree of faithfulness do I operate it with. Okay? So let's say the Lord has you live here from today until the day you die. You don't flip it. You never do another flip. You don't own anything other than this house in your name. Is God going to love you any less?
No.
Have you failed in faithfulness?
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not. What if you go and become similar to some of these men we've talked about, and from this moment forward, you forget God and you abandon him, and this world gives you everything you want: status, identity, and money. Like what
I'll need a lot of ice packs and water.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
I don't feel like I'd be going to the right place.
Yeah.
Even though like that gets in a whole topic.
Yeah.
Can you lose your salvation?
Yeah.
You know?
So you framed it this way, okay? What does faith look like? Almost like it felt like you framed it. What does it look like to be connected to God? Right? We're talking about that way. Just like you and I are talking in this room, we're connected to a Heavenly Father to some degree. We're all theologians. Some are just better than others. We all know there's a God, but there's a distance in that relationship, right? You've walked close to him, maybe you've drifted. So this is a relationship like ours that can be strained. It can come closer together, it can be built up, it can be strong. I just think God wants to invite you into this to understand what he wants you to do. And when I start with that I don't own these things, that they were given to me, that changes, that kind of changes it. Sorry, I lost my train of thought, man.
You're good. I would like to kind of go back into just the real estate stuff. Like a few more questions that I have is like with the market constantly changing and say running numbers, like how are you, like obviously you probably factor in like variables and stuff, but how do you, I guess, deal with the market and it's constantly changing, whether it's cost of rent, cost of buying a new house, material, because obviously during COVID, like material was like 2x or whatever, like crazy, sky high. And it's like, well, if you didn't factor that in, now you're losing money.
Yeah. So we can talk about managing risk in markets. Really quick, a lot of markets, the ones we've analyzed, some of the property values have doubled since 2019. So just envision, it's been 6-7 years since the pandemic started, doubling. Okay. But it's not just the property values, it's also taxes and insurance have gone up. But you hit the nail on the head. It's construction costs. So when you mentioned that house you ran past that was torn down, that may be a missed opportunity because you cannot frame and build that structure the way it was for the cost that it would be to acquire it. It costs a lot more. So I would say risk. There's always risk, right? There's risk in an up market and a down market. The best thing we can do is stick to the fundamentals, right? So buy low, sell high. You buy at the right price. I try to say this to people, hey, the best investors make money in an up market. S&P 500 is going up, great. Anyone can make money, but they also make money when it's going down, okay? Good investors, like the guys you listen to, they make money when there's a red president in office. They make money when there's a blue president. It's not so much based on them or their market. It's that they fundamentally add value and they have a product or service that's needed. So when I think about it, as a little kid, my parents said, okay, we would encourage you to do one of three things. Go into food service, provide clothing, or provide housing. Because in any market, those three things are going to be needed to some degree more than others. But I think real estate is the most pivotal because everyone needs a place to live. And it goes back to this idea, we talked about faith for a little bit, of we are providing places for people to live, but it's more than just that. If you were to flip the house and you down the street, you are improving your neighborhood. So one house, one neighborhood at a time, and that will always add value. And when we talk, I thought about this too on the way over here. I was talking to my wife. Sometimes faith in business looks like doing the thing that doesn't make you the most money. So let's get back to the mindset. The market's going down. I'm not making as much money, okay? Man, bank accounts were doing awesome there about 2 years ago. Interest rate was fantastic. What happens when I'm more strained financially, right? We have a daughter. There's cost to her. It's not as expensive as you'd think. But you go, okay, do I let my morals and my values and my obedience to God slip when the market changes? You'd say, well, I hope not. But there's some friction there. So in a changing market, yeah, we're going to do we're going to do three things, which we kind of talked about, right? Buy it right, live below your means, and always have a backup plan for where your money's going to be. I think I don't want to go on too long, but I do think mindset is everything. So I listen to Warren Buffett a lot, and he's the guy who says, hey, be fearful when others are greedy and greedy when others are fearful. And I've started to learn that market changes are not, they're not bad. They're opportunities, right? So even over the past month or two, with everything that's been going on, and not to contextualize for the video, but a war, oil consumption, oil being limited, and then the stock market going, and all over the place. You kind of go ride the wave, because if you have the mindset of Chicken Little, you're only ever going to get squashed. Okay, so I see those as opportunities, and the same thing will happen in real estate. And I think fundamentally, right? Okay, fundamentally, if we buy something that pays for itself and pays you at the end of the day, how can you lose? Can you lose a tenant? Absolutely. Will the market change? Will people move? Absolutely. But fundamentally, you have something that adds value. And then in that case, if you see something tomorrow, you're going to buy it. If you see something 2 years from now, and when the stock market drops or the housing market drops, you're still going to buy it, because it's not about where the market is going. It's about the back of the napkin. This duplex makes sense. I'm going to buy it. Doesn't matter where rates are. I'm going to kind of adjust to that. But I think, just to close, I think the real goal here is, whatever market it is, am I adding value to the people that I serve? So that could be your investors, that could be for your family, but it's for the people, the person that buys your flip house down the road. Now I'm just going to talk like that. The person who buys your flip house, is there value? And I think that
Milo is needing to stretch out.
Yeah.
So I think focusing on the success of others will oftentimes bring you success as well.
So when you go into, say you see a property, see an opportunity, and I believe real estate outperforms the stock market every year. That might not be true, but I feel like Dave Ramsey said that. But anyways.
Over the long term.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So when you go into a deal, you see opportunity, are you going into that thinking, we're flipping this? Or have you ever gone in and you're like, we're going to flip this? And then you're like, wait, let's rent this out? Because obviously you flip a house, you're going to get that money quicker. And then you could do more things with that. If you rent it out, it's going to be longer, not as much. How do you decide if you want to flip, rent?
Yep. Good question, Isaac. So for each deal, make sure you have a primary and a secondary exit strategy, right? Okay, primary, I'm going to buy the house, I'm going to flip it. No, there's pros and cons to each of it. Pros are, I'm going to go in there, I'm going to do the work, no issues with tenants, I'm going to fix it, I'm going to make a payday. The downside is there's something called short-term capital gains tax. So you pay a higher tax rate if you keep it less than a year. So you can structure it that way. The secondary one could be, hey, let's make sure we run the numbers on that, because what if the market tanks in the next 6 months? And when I go to list it on the market, I can't get what I needed. Let's say the margins are thin. I'm only going to make 5 or 10% on the flip. Probably not the best idea to take something like that down, but let's run the numbers. If I had to rent it out, refinance it, right, at current rates, and rent it out, could it make it work? I think those are the two biggest things I would say, is make sure you have two exit strategies. You just never want to be pigeonholed into one. If it makes sense as a flip, go ahead, move on it as a flip. But you have to be thinking, because we've had this happen before. We go, okay, are we going to keep this one, or are we going to sell it? And that will change what you put into it. Okay, do I put in granite countertops, or do I put in Formica countertops? Because you have to stick to one, because it can change quite rapidly. And then, the question of value comes back up. Okay, what adds the most value here? Rents have been going up, since the pandemic. So you kind of, there are so many different ways you can be creative. Let's say your flip house. Another one you can do both. Do the long flip. The long flip is buy it, flip it, rent it for a year, and then sell it. Or buy it, flip it, refinance it, rent it, and then 5 years down the road, sell it. You'd be amazed at some of the houses that we flipped, and then 5 years later, what they then sell for. You're like, I just should have held on to this thing for 5 more years and then sold it, because I would have made this much more. But I think those are yeah, I think those are the couple things I'd look at.
If the deal only works in a perfect scenario, it's not a deal, it's a gamble.
Whoa, that's good.
Thank you. Yeah, I wrote that down. I didn't come up with it. I just found it, but
Yeah.
I thought that's good because like I've said it before, like in a perfect scenario, like if this works out perfect, it's like, but no, like that's a gamble because you need to have leeway. And like you said, 2X strategies, great game plan. Have you ever got into or looked into rent to own or
Yes.
lease to own, whatever? Have you done it?
I've been on a couple deals where that was offered and it didn't really work out.
So I forget who I was listening to at one point in time, but he was like, he loved it because you could charge more rent because you would say, because they wouldn't have enough money for down payment, which like in the state we're in right now living, most people aren't buying houses until later in life now because everything costs more, whatever. So you could help someone out, say, we'll take $200, $300 from every payment, we're putting it back, and then 3 years, whatever, we'll give you that money back, or we'll count that as the down payment, we'll sell you the house. But then in 3 years, if they decide they don't want to live there or something, like they don't get that money back, and then you got $1,400 a month instead of maybe $1,100. But there's definitely, I think, more like language and that kind of stuff you have to put into it. And like, again, this is all off of stuff I've read and learned or listened to from other people is if you do like a rent to own, like they're going to respect the property more because they're in their head they're thinking like this is ours, and they're going to want to maybe put in a new sink, and they're not going to call you because that's going to be their baby here in a year or two, and even now because they were living there. But so like, how did those deals work, or like why?
Yeah, that absolutely can work. Cutting out a bank and having the current owner be the banker and doing is either rent to own or seller financing. Is that what you're you're alluding to, getting into seller financing? It's really simple. It can work really well. I don't want to speak too much from my experience. A lot of times it doesn't work well because you're fully dependent on the strength of the person. You are closer. You are yoked together much closer than you would be if you sold it or if you just rented it to them. Okay. So your success largely depends on their success. So if they're successful and they complete your contract, you will be successful, right? And if they don't, it kind of can put you in a not as good of a place. Okay. Yeah, leases are important because leases protect the tenant and they protect the homeowner. Contracts also, but there can be more emotion when you're selling it. So if it works out that way, you certainly can. But the two avenues again is how do I redeploy my capital? So let's say Isaac flips that house and Theron comes and says, well, I'd like to give you $5,000 down. Okay. I want you to be the bank. I may not qualify for traditional financing, or I'm asking if you would do that. Let's say you'd offer me a loan at 5%. I put $5,000 down, 5%. A portion of it goes to principal, a portion of it goes to interest. Great. Your money will be stuck in that. And every time we think about capital, seller financing can be great, but it's a snowball and we want it to accelerate. So we're not trying to push it on a flat surface or up a hill. We're trying to push it down a hill. So every deal we look at, we're saying, okay, is this snowball going to roll down the hill? Because I need that money. Okay, let's say I bought it for 50, I put 50 into it, I've got $100,000. That can certainly work. I see seller financing be a more creative way to sell a property for people who don't need bread money. Okay, if you're older or if your cash flow is very high and you want to offer that, right? The benefits are massive. So if you were to flip that house and sell it tomorrow, maybe say you made a gain of $40,000, you're going to owe capital gains tax on that amount. A lot of the reason that someone might do seller financing is to avoid that taxable event. The taxable event is the sale of the property and then the net proceeds that came your way. So if we delay the final sale date, which is essentially the deed transfers, most seller financing deals, you don't walk away with title the day you put the $5,000 down, right? The owner waits until the last penny has been paid, then the deed goes in your name. So I've seen a lot of older men and women use that. I don't typically use it just because of that. The velocity of capital has to just be a little bit, because if let's say I needed that money tomorrow, I'd either refinance the property or sell it because I see another opportunity. So
how do you deal with tenants? Like, obviously you do like a background check, that kind of stuff, but what do you do with tenants that aren't paying and won't leave? Because don't they have like 6 months or a year where they kind of can just finagle around and not pay you and that sort of thing?
yeah, we could do a whole seminar on that topic alone.
And you don't do any Section 8 housing, correct?
I manage a few rentals
Okay.
that are have a housing assistant programs. I'll even go one step back. So all of this is when I work with someone, they're not my tenant, they're my partner. Okay, right? They don't serve me, I serve them. Okay, it's a little bit. It should be a little bit fundamental change here. The term landlord, right? Everyone's trying to move away from old language. I'm not going to say, the owner and then the tenant. So I say, okay, who am I partnering my wagon to? Because it's going to be someone that's going to accelerate that snowball, or it's going to be like pushing it uphill. So anytime it's very easy to move someone in. It's very hard to move someone out. Okay. So it's easy to sign a lease. It's hard to evict someone. So I don't want to give too much away, but I discourage evictions. It's going to give who was your partner a leg up to push it out 60 to 90 days. I have used that. You do have to from time to time. But if you're a little bit more selective at the start and you're not in a rush, you're accepting a lower rent than the market. So you're getting someone who's more qualified. You're going through your whole process, which you alluded to: background, credit, verifying income, calling references, and then kind of doing your due diligence. I find that my numbers have been, I think my percentage of times I've had to evict is like 4%. So 4 out of every 100. And I'll take that all day long.
It's not bad at all.
Yeah.
So for the listeners that don't know you as well, because we haven't really talked about it yet. So last thing we said, you went to college, you were doing managing properties. You and your wife now to the point where you're do it all. Like, you guys don't have any other jobs. You left your job, she left hers, and you're doing this full time. I talked to you on the phone maybe a month ago, and you were saying, like, you think it's the best decision you guys ever made. Then there's other people that, like, kind of like Rich Dad Poor Dad, where they, have their job and they feel safe as well. I would say you and your wife personally probably have more freedom. I know you definitely have more freedom in some aspects, and then other aspects, you could say it for the other people. How did you get there? We obviously know the real estate stuff worked. It is working. But how do you think, or how did you make that big jump? Because, I mean, you're fully in short, like, everything is on you now,
right?
And your wife.
Yeah. Do you want me to talk more about practical things instead of mindset, like practically what it took to jump? Because
whatever. I enjoy the mindset of everything because that's who I am and like what I like.
Well, I feel like you and I might be similar, where if I don't check every box, I might not do the thing. Okay. So we have to get out of that mindset a little bit, because we might build parameters for ourselves that will hold us back. And the only one holding you back may be just you. Okay. So the first question you asked when we started was, how much money? Okay. I would encourage anyone listening to save $50,000 for investment purposes only. It's enough money to get you into a deal, cover your down payment, cover expenses, and cover if it doesn't cash flow for a couple months. Okay? Depending on the deal and depending on your market, take that with a grain of salt. If you have $50,000 that you can afford to lose, and you have stable income from your W-2, from some type of job, and the third thing, you have an emergency fund. So you've set aside, I encourage 6 to 12 months of all expenses. So then when your husband or your wife or your kids say, why are you doing this thing? You're leaving your job, or you're taking a part-time job and you're buying this thing. You can say, hey, I have a plan. Here are my numbers. Here are the fundamentals. Here's the money we have to invest into it. And here's my savings. So if we don't make money, I'm still going to be able to provide. So what that does is it takes all of the pressure off of you and the asset, and you're not depending on the asset to provide for you. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to make almost like touch points. We're trying to set up as many businesses and opportunities to serve others as we can. So for us, when I worked, the last job I had before we stepped on our own, I I sold money. I was a loan officer. I did commercial loans and investment loans for exactly what we're talking about. Where I loaned money to guys just like you and just like me. Okay. So at the end of the day, when we did that, my wife and I looked at our budget every month and we said, okay, who do we get paid from? Okay, we got paid from two people, my boss and her boss. So if I get injured, she gets injured, or we have children and she steps away, we then have one income. Okay, the freedom starts to dwindle when you have the one income. So for anyone who's looking to branch out, the mindset is, I want these multiple different touch points. I want 10 businesses. I want 20 businesses. And the other mindset is this. Okay, what's two things. What was my real goal? My real goal 10 years ago, I made this up, totally made it up. And it might not be applicable today. I wanted 500,000 people working for me every day and night. Okay, I'm going to explain what I mean by that. I wanted $500,000 invested in cash flowing real estate that worked for me. Okay, are they people? No, they're not people, but they're 500,000 little dollar bills that work for me. I don't work for them. Okay, so that was my mindset. Another mindset I had was I want 10 free and clear rentals. These are things that your books are reading that might kind of describe that better than I did. So if that's our mindset, then you can't wait to do the next deal, because if it doesn't need to be a home run and it just needs to be a single, we just need to get there. But those are some of the things that helped me take the next step. I think having mentors, man, this person's already done it. I've seen that person do it for years. You and I have talked. It's not difficult. You have the ability. Let's get the foundation set so you can really afford to push off and jump and we assess risk at every angle. Okay. The truth is, every day you go out your front door, there's a risk you're taking. Every day you go to work, there's a risk. Every week you stay at your job, whether you love it or okay with it or hate it, is a risk. And you have to assess that, because what we're ultimately talking about is I think we're talking about a longer runway here. When we're talking about real estate, we could talk about work all day long. We could talk about the mindset of being indispensable at our jobs and making the most money for our bosses, which for me, for a long time, and some of our listeners, is going to be the best thing you can do, is be indispensable and make as much money as you can doing good business and selling the right product, so you can do X, Y, and Z. Maybe for some people, their vehicle is not going to be real estate. Maybe it's going to be the Dave Ramsey way, which is fundamentally sound, of investing 15% of your income for your entire life. I just think for you and me, though, and for some other people listening, maybe that's not exactly what we want, because we want to be entrepreneurs. So that's the difference here. So let's change the idea of, hey, how much money do you need? Okay, well, what does it take to be an entrepreneur? There's a mindset, and then there's the practical side of it. So if you can work on both of those, I think it's gonna make things a lot smoother, because the first year can be rough.
Yeah, risk. A lot of people overlook risk, like you said, when they're kind of comfortable in their job. And yeah, there's risk literally in everything. But there's a Bible verse, Proverbs 13:22. A good person leaves an inheritance for their children's children, but a sinner's wealth is stored up for like the righteous. And you said earlier about part of the reason is you want to be able to leave money for your kids and an inheritance. And some people can't do that, obviously. And then obviously some people can. I've heard mixed emotions between people before about, oh, like, you're only there because of your parents, they left you money and this and that. But it is a biblical thing that is in the Bible. And obviously, like you said, most things in the Bible about money being rich are negative. And it's not really putting a dollar amount on that Bible verse, but it is kind of saying, like, you should, a sinner's wealth is stored up for the righteous, but a good person leaves an inheritance for their children's children. So that's enough to get you not to your kid, but to your grandkids. And you alluded to that earlier. Do you feel like that's part of your legacy and, like, why you are where you are now?
And that's a great question. That's a great verse. Proverbs talks about over and over again, right? The fool does folly, and the wise, does it differently. And That's a great verse. Yeah, I mean, don't we all want to leave something for someone? But at the same time, hey, here's a mindset. I had to have this talk with my parents someday. It was a great conversation, and the idea was this. Somehow it came up, and I said, hey, Mom and Dad, if there was nothing to hand to me, the sad thing is when you get what someone gives you, you lose the person. So I don't want to get it. I don't want anything because it means I don't get them. Okay? So that's the mindset. Now, family relationships can be very varied, right? But if there's a principle of that, the principle that I've been given was my parents, if they left me nothing, have given me everything I need as a son, from a father to a son and a mother to a son. And I think that's what I want to imitate. Okay? So then success isn't handing them properties or money or stocks. Okay? It's creating a life that they want to imitate. Okay? That's stewardship. They say most generational wealth you typically only lasts 1 or 2 generations. So we have even in our family. So my dad tells the story of his grandfather. His grandfather was in real estate as well in York, built a lot of things, and let's just say those things are no longer in our family. Things that you think would be in a family for generations. And I don't say that to criticize anyone in my family. It's just that what's most important is not handing down a keys to a Ferrari. It's handing down the understanding of how to
get the Ferrari.
How to get the Ferrari. Yeah. I think success used to mean building wealth, but now with her, it means living a life that I hope she would one day want to imitate.
That's good.
Yeah.
There's one other Bible verse I wrote down. It's Matthew 6:24. And this goes back to money, wealth, all that stuff. No one can serve 2 masters. Either you'll hate the one and love the other, or you'll be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. And I'm big on, some people with tithing in churches. Like, I think we get the wrong look on, if they're rich, that's wrong. I truly believe it means you can't love money, love God, and think they're at the same pedestal. Like, you can be successful and still love God. It's just, what are you, like, is everything around money? Is it money this, money that? Like, that's the way I look at it. I don't think it's just because you're successful, you have money, you're a bad person. But I don't think you can serve. I know, because the Bible says you can't serve both.
Yeah, that's the idea of like lordship. What has lordship over your life? Because I think when we talk about ambition, Isaac, God gives ambition and he gives skills and abilities and talents. He didn't just give those for you. He gave those first to glorify himself, and we also do that by serving others. So I know a lot of successful men that are humble, and you might not even know it, and you respect them so deeply because they don't show that, but you know that, and you know that because most of them started businesses. Think about all the men, right? So the men that you described, the top 5 richest men or men in the world, they started businesses. They didn't, right? So here's an idea. I heard this the other day. If you're not building your empire, you're building someone else's. And that hit me to the core, where you go, so this is good. It's good to talk about it. You got to be careful about empire. I'm not here to build an empire because there's God's kingdom, right? But there's an idea of like, what am I working for? And I'll just say, I love that you've been reading these Bible verses. I wasn't prepared for that. I'm so glad you did, because all these things we're talking about, it's not even us. These are things that go far. With these principles and wisdom has come long before us. It will last long after us. One of the books I'll throw out, I don't agree with every mindset in the book, so caveat, but The Richest Man in Babylon is a book that is great to understand lending and investing, and it's really short and it's really quick, and there are a lot of principles that are in the Bible that are also in that book. I wrote down a verse. I thought of you. It's a kind of a similar principle to what you said. Luke 12:48. For everyone to whom much is given, from him much will be required. And remember that famous Spider-Man movie verse, right? Like with
Never watched Spider-Man.
Never watched Spider-Man.
My mom was very, very strict.
It says, with great power comes great responsibility.
Okay.
So it's like, oh, it's from the Bible.
Yeah. Yeah, but no, that's true because I like about building the empire. Yeah. Like something I always try to explain to my mom is everyone is here and you have to have a job of some sort to make you money, especially like obviously some families you don't need like you might be a stay-at-home mom, but then like that's kind of your job too. But anyways, everyone needs to make money, but it's like, are you making yourself money? And not saying are you making yourself rich, but it's like there's someone out there that you're making a crap ton of dollars, and it's like why not try to, like you said, you want to build things where it's making you money and benefiting you, and it's not benefiting say someone else, and that can also get like, well, that kind of sounds greedy, but I like that's the way I look at it. If I have the skills and stuff to make this person money, I would like to get say 100% return or 100% return in what I'm giving, and not giving someone else 50% of what I'm making because that's you're making them the money. You're the basically the slave for them to do whatever they want to do with their money or investment.
Well, I mean, what is money even for? And how you answer that question defines what it will be to you. If it's money, it will bring me a material thing and make me happy, then that's what money will be to you. But you're talking about money in a way that's far greater than that, like your whole mindset around it. And I think, and what's the verse? Okay, it's in Matthew. I forget the verse. It's, do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy and thieves break in and steal, but instead store up treasures in heaven where moth and rust will not destroy and thieves will not break in and steal. So how do you help me with this? What do you think it looks like to store up treasures in heaven?
I would say the biggest one would be bringing people with you, like impacting other people. Whether it's like being a servant to, I mean, you get to see a bunch of people, like tenants in that aspect, and then just your mentors and just the way you live, and then even doing this podcast, like helping people. And sometimes I think we start to forget how much of an impact we actually have on people. Like even on a small scale, it's like you think, well, I'm only affecting, like today, it's like, okay, we're having this conversation. It's like 3 people are getting affected and changed, but it's like, okay, well, once this gets put out there, like there's so many people that you are going to impact and change. And, I mean, I know sometimes I listen to podcasts and it's like you start to relate with someone. You're like, man, like that really helped me out and changed me. And you sometimes don't see that. Like no one comes up to you and they're like, hey, man, like you really helped me out. But I think that would probably be the biggest treasure. I don't think it's like money. I don't think God's like putting like $100 like in a bank. I mean, because when you're in heaven, like I don't think money's going to even be a thought. But that's what I would think it is.
Dude, I love that. I'm actually going to steal that. Bring people with you. You're absolutely right. And if there was a way to take our dollars and put them in like, what would it be called? What would the bank on the corner be called? Heavenly Trust or something like that, But it doesn't operate that way. Why? Because eternity doesn't pass through hands with dollars. It passes through people with hearts and souls. And there's a value. Money is just a tool, but people are. Money is a commodity. It's almost like something that will disappear. It will all burn up. It's an IOU. Really, what is the dollar? The dollar. We don't have to talk about the Fed, but it's an IOU. But when God created the garden, how do we get back to that? Okay, He created it and He called it good. There was no debt. There were no IOUs. There was good work to be done by Adam and good work to be done by Eve. And I just think we can summarize it and talk about it another time. But what does it look like to get back to the garden? Because I think He's going to bring it full circle. In the garden, Adam and Eve fell. And then what happened? They were separated from God. Okay, right? Let's just do the gospel, right? Separated from God. Why? Because they wanted to be like Him. They wanted to have their eyes opened. They wanted to understand what only God could understand. They were tempted by the serpent. They fell, both Adam and Eve. And then so they were separated. An angel was set at the outside of the garden with a sword. So imagine a sword crossing over, and they were sent off. But God said before that, He said, I will make a way. right? Your descendant. There will be one who will come, and we'll make a way. So this is crazy. There's so much we could talk about. Adam and Eve's first son, Cain. Okay, one of the translations for that is like the man, or the man who will come to save. So when they first had their first son, they thought, could this be the descendant that would make us be able to go back to be with God? Well, what did Cain do?
Killed Abel, right?
He went and,
or one of them got killed.
Yeah,
right?
he killed his brother. He took a wrong heart motive when he went to sacrifice to God, and he didn't give his best and he didn't give his first because he did not think God was worthy of it. So if that doesn't speak volumes about what we go to do, be very careful that we build kingdoms that way. But I bring it back because someone had to pass through the angels with the swords. Okay, someone had to make a way, and for us, knowing that it's Jesus, he suffered the cross, suffered God's wrath on my behalf so that I could be able to have union with him again. And I think when we start the conversation of how this is practical, okay, what does it look like today to allow God to be working? I'm messing up on my words. In this house, what does it look like to seek to be like the garden, to let the garden flourish here, to abide with him, to have it be, obviously the curse is here, it's not perfect, but I think some of these verses get to that, and you're right, like let's take people with us. It's the other thing too, we were talking about it earlier. A lot of times we will remind each other, you hear, oh, God loves you so much, and you think, okay, well that's top down. But when we think about money, when Jesus says, if you love me, you'll keep my commandments, I think that's where I can practically encourage you, is like, hey, some days you talked about sinning earlier. You're like, you talked about it like it's someone hitting you. Oh, I sinned, and it brings you down. If we just have to make sure that our identity is not based on how we failed or how we mess up, because we will, even when you become a believer. Our identity should be on the one who never did fail, and that's Jesus. So it's this upward trajectory, and he calls us to something greater. It's like, what does it look like for you? So another practical question, hey, as a man, what does it look like for me to obey Jesus' commands today? And I just think we listen to these guys in these books, and man, they've accomplished so much, and sometimes you think, how am I ever going to do that? But God only calls us to walk in faithfulness to him in 24-hour periods. All you had was today. And at the end of the day, you're going to be able to talk to your fiance or talk to your mom or talk to your family member, and you're going to say, here's what I did today. Was it a good day? Did I, and I just want to encourage anyone listening that it is every day God gives us is a 24-hour period for us to serve him, and then it resets. And I'm really thankful for that reset, because I don't want to say any of this out of boastfulness because I mess up, but thank goodness that the sun sets and then it rises again.
One of the biggest thing I'm thankful for is going to bed and waking up. Because even when you have stressful days or like long days, it feels so good to go to bed. And, tomorrow I wake up, it's a new day. The birds are chirping, the sun's coming up, and you feel good. You feel the energy, and you're like, all right, I'm ready to go again. But, yeah, thank goodness for sleep and recovery and all that. I would like to say one more thing before we wrap up the podcast. Was about, you said, what do you think money is, or like, what do you want to use it for? And you said, like, if it's materialistic, like, that's all it'll ever be. And I think, like, the biggest thing to know about materialistic things is they do not bring you happiness in whatsoever. And that's coming from me and coming from everyone else above me that has way more money than me. You listen to them talk, and you hear them, and they say it over and over and over again. And then it's like, people are like, well, I want to see if it's true. And then they go and they try to get it, and they get it. And then, like, Matthew McConaughey talks about it, like, going after this certain amount of dollar, and he gets it, and he realizes nothing else changed. Like, you have this money, but you don't feel any happier. You don't feel any more, like, anxiety's still there. You're still stressed, all these things. And just because, like, I know, like, a lot of younger kids, they want a nice vehicle, or, like, they want this thing. And I was there. Like, I want a nice truck. And then you get it, and it's the same thing. It's fun for a week maybe. And then you start, like, man, like, I'm paying this much in a payment. And that's down the road. But, like, with everything, like, there's so many things in life It's like money does not bring you happiness. Even though I do like nice things, I do try to keep it to, like, I try to watch where I spend my money in that aspect, because I've definitely been down that road where it's like, I want this, you get it, and that's it. That's it. It ends. There's no more happiness. Now, if I had a Ferrari and I drove the Ferrari like once a week on a nice sunny day, I probably would like enjoy that. Like, not even a Ferrari, just any car that had a top off. Like there is some things that bring you a little bit of joy, like to get in and it's like, okay, well, this is fun. But if you do it every single day, it's just gets old.
Yeah, yeah. You don't need a lot in life to be happy. Maybe when you're younger, you go to the bar, but then you get older and you realize you don't need alcohol to have a good time. And sometimes you live in the middle of nowhere, kind of like we do in Pennsylvania. But listen, you don't need a lot to have a good time because you make your own fun. But when we're talking about wealth, something my wife had to teach me, and I'm taking it from James chapter 4. It's this idea of wealth is the illusion of security. It's an illusion. True security only comes from God. And it's one of those things where I'm glad you brought me on, because these are things that I think we don't talk enough about. We could just talk about our successes, but then if we don't talk about our failures or where I went down the wrong road and thinking that getting your bank account to a certain number, because we do. If it just had this many zeros, I would be content. But what we're doing is we're putting our faith in ourselves to provide for ourselves, and then we're not even happy when we get there, because you got the truck and you did everything you thought you should do to feel a certain way, and you felt it for a brief time. Ecclesiastes talks about that. It's like we're a vapor. Our work is a vapor, our life is a vapor, and in the end, it all goes back to the dirt. So we kind of go, what does true safety look like? It's like it's like being a child, like childlike faith, and depending on the Lord, whether He provides or not. Because, man, I read all these books, I listen to some of the guys that you listen to, and that sounds great. Maybe you were in sports and you wanted to be, maybe you were really good at one thing, baseball, basketball, whatever, and you thought you'd be there. But when you don't reach those heights, then what? What happens if you reach those heights like most of our professional athletes are today, and then they retire? And then I've listened to their stories, and they go through seasons of, man, I was at the peak, I was at the pinnacle, I had money, I had fame, I had celebrity status, and then I lost it. And then I tore my ACL. And then you realize that was all built upon almost like this Greco-Roman culture of me and building strength and building that, and then there's really nothing there. And then the man gets broken down he goes far past where he ever was because he didn't have God. So I would just say, yeah, true safety only comes from the Lord.
If Michael Phelps gets depressed after everything he accomplished, like, I don't know what other signs people need to realize, like, that, he had everything you can imagine. I think he still has the most gold medals in the Olympics, and it's kind of like he had no identity in who he was, because everything he was is, being famous, being this great athlete, and like he didn't know who he was outside of that. And sometimes people put these people on pedestals, and you're like, you look up to them, but sometimes you just need to be thankful for not being having so much more stuff to deal with. And there's one more thing I want to say is there will be a day where people are going to be mad at you because you're not answering their phone calls, you're not answering their emails, and you're dead. And it doesn't matter at all to you, but it's bothering them. But my last question for you is, if you could pick one one book, podcast that you would recommend to the audience to help them in real estate, get closer to God, what would it be and why?
Okay, I love that. I've got a bunch, so if it's okay, I'm going to throw out a couple.
Go for it.
We already said Rich Dad Poor Dad. Start there. If you're tracking with the mindset, keep going. Second one, any book of the Bible. Specifically, start in the book of James. If you want to know what morals and character looks like, the book of James, written by the half-brother of Jesus, is a fantastic place to go, because he's someone that failed, called his earthly brother Jesus, that didn't believe in him, right? James only came to faith after the cross. And the whole book is him as an older, wiser man of what it looks like, what real, authentic faith looks like. So the book of James is the gospel at street level. So I would highly recommend that. Ecclesiastes, for any guy right now who owns a business, read it. It's going to be hard to read through. It's a lament. It's sad. It's kind of negative. But it ends with this. It ends with enjoy work. The last few verses, enjoy work, fear God and keep his commandments. Because ultimately, all that we're talking about is this is a life that God gave. I don't get to write the rules. I'm just going to be obedient. I just finished the book by Patrick Bet-David, Your Next 5 Moves. Recommend that. And there's a podcast. There's a podcast I'd love to listen to if you're into finance and you're into podcasts. It's called Radical Personal Finance by Joshua Sheets. He does a great job, just like you, and he has given me tons of value for no money. So
It's a great thing about a podcast, especially when you bring on great guests like you. So much value, so much to learn from.
how do we monetize this?
I don't know. Well, Spotify. I need to deal with Spotify. That's how we monetize it.
Yeah.
And I'll give you a little portion next
Yeah.
time you come on.
Well, thanks for the opportunity. I'm really glad you invited me because, hey, we met 3 years ago, and I knew that we had a connection because of what we were doing, our mindset. And I want to encourage you in your business because you're doing hard things to be successful, and it's going to pay off. And maybe not in the way you thought, maybe not even monetarily, but the real gift back to God is the man he's building in you. It's not the bank account. It's not even necessarily your family or what you create. It's the man that he's building you to be. So keep building.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.